Coachella 2025 wasn't just a music festival, it was a cultural earthquake. Every April, the desert wakes up, not with silence but with sound. Sound that vibrates the ground, paints the sky with lasers, and turns strangers into a single, breathing crowd of 100,000. Coachella is more than a music festival, it's a moment, a movement, a cultural timestamp. And each year, a few performances rise above the lineup and etch themselves into music history. In 2025, something different happened. 5 artists didn't just perform. They redefined what it means to feel music, to live inside a moment of it. They weren't just famous names, they became legends in real time. Lady Gaga didn't just return. She staged a pop opera with a message buried under sequins and synths. Green Day reminded us that punk isn't a genre, it's a heartbeat. Missy Elliott built a time machine out of beats and chrome. Benson Boone shared a stage with a rock god, and Post Malone made vulnerability louder than fireworks. What happened at Coachella 2025 wasn't just spectacular, it was spiritual. It was cinematic, it was raw, it was real, and today, we're diving deep into the 5 sets that didn't just go viral, they became timeless. This isn't a playlist, it's a story. And whether you were in the desert or halfway around the world, these are the moments that define the sound of now. Let's begin. Chapter 1: Lady Gaga, the Return of the Queen. Lady Gaga didn't just headline Coachella 2025. She arrived like a cinematic prophecy. From the second the massive LED screen cracked open like a portal and she emerged in a silver exoskeleton suit, the crowd knew this wasn't going to be a concert. It was going to be an era-defining spectacle. She opened with Stupid Love. Her vocals untouched by backing tracks, her choreography sharper than ever, and her control over the crowd, absolute. But what hit differently was the tone. It wasn't campy, it wasn't comedic, it was regal. Gaga came to reclaim her crown, and every moment of that nearly 2-hour set was engineered to remind us she wears it well. She transitioned into the classics, Poker Face reimagined, with an enormous chessboard-themed performance, her dancers moving like knights and bishops around her. The imagery wasn't subtle, Gaga was the queen piece, untouchable, unpredictable, and always 10 steps ahead. Then came her new material, and this is where the mood shifted. Disease, Killa, and Baby, I Don't Break, all from her unreleased album Mayhem, introduced fans to a darker, more experimental Gaga. These songs carry the energy of Chromatica but stripped of its armor, revealing emotional grit beneath the glitter. Then came the emotional climax, her piano-only segment. Under a single beam of white light, she performed Shallow and Angel Down, her voice breaking at moments, not from strain, but sincerity. And just when the vulnerability peaked, she closed with a resurrection of the Bad Romance music video. Full cast, full costume, full chaos. It was like watching a pop mythology play out in real time. Gaga wasn't just performing at Coachella. She was building her monument in the desert, brick by brick, beat by beat. Chapter 2: Green Day, Punk Isn't Dead, it's headlining. Green Day's entrance was as subtle as a wrecking ball through glass. The first screech of Billy Joe Armstrong's guitar opened American Idiot, and the entire desert valley roared. It wasn't just a song, it was a middle finger to time, to growing old, to becoming vintage. And in that moment, Green Day made one thing clear: punk never needed permission to come back. It just needed a stage big enough to start the riot. Billy Joe was electric, leaping across the stage like it was 1994, not 2025. His vocals were raw, not polished, and that's exactly what made them perfect. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, they transitioned into the emotional heart of their discography. Holiday, Wake Me Up When September Ends, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, songs that defined a generation, and yet somehow felt like they were written for the moment we were all living in. And then came the wild curveball. Out walked the Go-Go's, 80s legends in their own right. to join Green Day for a jaw-dropping rendition of Head Over Heels. The crowd didn't know whether to scream, cry, or mosh. It was a chaotic blend of eras, punk and pop new wave, and it worked better than anyone could have imagined. They closed with Good Riddance Time of Your Life, but not the radio version, no. This was stripped down, acoustic, with a full string quartet behind them. As Billy Joe strummed the final chord, you could see people holding each other, crying, laughing, remembering what those lyrics meant to them the first time they heard them. And in that final note, Green Day did something most punk bands never get to do. They proved they had grown without ever growing soft. Chapter 3: Missy Elliott, the hip-hop time traveler. Missy Elliott made an entrance like no one else at Coachella, in a spaceship. Yes, an actual chrome capsule descended from above the main stage as laser beams carved her name into the sky. When it landed and cracked open, out came Missy, rocking a cybernetic suit, looking like the final boss of hip-hop. And from the very first beat of Lose Control, she didn't just perform, she owned the timeline. She brought the 2000s with her, slammed them into 2025, and reprogrammed what a legacy act could look and sound like. The transitions between songs were seamless, the choreography militaristic, and the visuals otherworldly. But what elevated her set into another dimension was her use of holographic doubles, digital clones of herself performing iconic moments from her past videos. There was 1999 Missy from The Rain, oversized trash bag and all, rapping side by side with present-day Missy. At one point, 4 versions of her performed in sync, each one with a different hairstyle, a different era, a different energy. It was meta, it was surreal, it was hip-hop history layered in real time. She didn't need guest rappers, she brought versions of herself that already made history. Still, the most human moment came when she slowed it down and paid tribute to Timbaland and Aaliyah, her late sister in music. As their faces filled the screens, she sang a stripped-down version of One in a Million, and even the bass-heavy crowd stood still. It was haunting, beautiful, sacred. Missy Elliott proved she isn't just a pioneer, she's a time traveler with the ability to remind us of where we came from, while pulling us forward into what's possible. Chapter 4: Benson Boone and Brian May, A Generation Collides. The stage was dark. A grand piano sat alone under a soft golden spotlight. Then Benson Boone, 21 years old, a rising star with a voice that makes time feel slower, walked calmly to the bench. He sat, took a deep breath, and began playing Beautiful Things. His falsetto echoed into the silence. No crowd screams, no pyrotechnics, just his voice, young, raw, and achingly honest. And then, halfway through the song, the lights went out. When they returned, standing behind him was Brian May, Queen's legendary guitarist. The crowd gasped, no introduction, no announcement. Just the quiet hum of his guitar and a look between 2 musicians decades apart. And then, without warning, Benson transitioned into Bohemian Rhapsody. No backing track, no pre-recorded vocals. Just piano, vocals, and May's unmistakable solo, ringing through the night air like a sermon. It wasn't rehearsed perfection, it was emotional synchronicity. It was emotional synchronicity. As May's guitar sang in perfect harmony with Benson's voice, it became clear this wasn't about flashy collaborations or selling tickets. This was music at its purest, the unspoken connection between 2 artists who, despite their generational differences, shared a language that transcends time. The tension in the audience was palpable, a moment of collective understanding as they realized what they were witnessing wasn't just a performance, but a rare intersection of musical legacy and fresh talent. The raw emotion of their rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody was less about hitting the perfect note and more about the feeling of it. There was no need for fireworks or gimmicks. The audience was captivated by something much deeper. 2 musicians pouring their hearts into one of the greatest songs ever written, passing the torch between them without a word. When the final harmonies of Nothing Really Matters to Me faded into the wind, the silence that followed was deafening. The crowd, silent not from disinterest, but from awe. The gravity of the moment had left them speechless. The connection between Benson and Brian was undeniable, a seamless collaboration that honored the past while embracing the present. It was one of those once-in-a-lifetime moments that didn't need confetti or fire. It had soul, it had story. Benson Boone, the modern torchbearer, and Brian May, the legend, bridged to generations not with spectacle, but with truth. It was a lesson in music's power to connect, regardless of age, era, or genre. This collaboration wasn't just an iconic performance for the sake of spectacle. It was a statement about the timeless nature of music and its ability to evolve while retaining its emotional core. Benson Boone, with his fresh, indie pop sound, injected a sense of vulnerability and sincerity into the song that made it feel new again. And Brian May, with his unrivaled guitar skills, brought that iconic solo to life with the depth and precision only he could. Together, they didn't just perform a song, they transformed it, giving it new meaning and depth. The moment encapsulated the magic that happens when artists from different eras come together. It wasn't about competing for the spotlight, but about creating something that transcended generations. It was a fusion of passion, talent, and history that left everyone in the audience not just fans of a moment, but witnesses to a musical legacy being rewritten in real time. Chapter 5: Post Malone, the unfiltered headliner. Post Malone's set was the opposite of what anyone expected. No explosions, no giant lead walls. He walked out holding a beat-up acoustic guitar and a can of beer. He smiled, took a swig, and strummed the chords to rockstar like it was a campfire jam session. But somehow, that stripped-down approach made it even more powerful. The crowd didn't lose energy, they leaned in. His vulnerability wasn't a gimmick, it was the main act. In between songs, he talked to the crowd like friends, he joked, he cried. He introduced new songs from an upcoming folk project that fans are already calling his Bon Iver moment. One song in particular, called Still Here, had people sobbing, raw lyrics, finger-pecked guitar, and a hook that felt like a breakup letter to his younger self. And then came the surprise of the night. Noah Kahan walked out with an acoustic guitar of his own. Together, they performed Dial Drunk, unplugged, under blue spotlights and an open sky. It was less a concert and more a group therapy session with 100,000 people listening. He ended with Circles alone, unplugged and unfiltered, no encore. Just a bow, a wave, and a whispered thank you. No artist at Coachella 2025 stripped themselves down more than Post Malone. He didn't just perform for his fans, he showed them who he really was. And that, in the end, made him one of the most unforgettable acts of the festival. Post Malone's performance at Coachella 2025 wasn't just a concert, it was a catharsis. By the end of his set, it became clear that what he had shared wasn't just music, it was a piece of his soul, laid bare for all to see. There was a raw honesty in his presence, an openness that spoke to a deeper human experience. The stripped-down performance wasn't a choice to rely on simplicity. It was a deliberate step away from the showmanship and spectacle that typically dominate festival stages. It was an invitation for his fans to join him, not as idol and audience, but as equals. And in doing so, Post Malone reminded us that vulnerability is a form of strength. He didn't need to dazzle us with flash or fire. He just needed to be himself, and in that authenticity, he created something far more powerful, a connection that no amount of glitz or glamour could ever replicate. In that quiet, unplugged moment, with nothing but the sound of his guitar and the hum of the crowd, Post Malone became something more than a headliner. He became a storyteller, a mirror to the hearts of those who watched, showing them that even in the rawest, most unguarded moments, there is beauty. Coachella 2025 didn't just give us performances. It gave us chapters in the story of modern music. Lady Gaga reminded us how to reinvent without losing yourself. Green Day proved punk's not a phase, it's a flame. Missy Elliott? Timeless genius, bending time and sound with every beat. Benson Boone and Brian Mick gave us a moment so pure, it felt like history whispering through the speakers. And Post Malone, he didn't perform like a rock star, he connected like a human being. 5 artists, 5 unforgettable moments. All connected by one thing: truth, honest, raw, and unforgettable. If this video made you feel something, hit subscribe. Drop a comment, tell us what performance hit you hardest. And don't forget to turn on the bell. This is only the beginning. From the dessert dust to your screen, this is your backstage pass to music that matters. We'll see you in the next one.